What's going on, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about how I found out what I wanted to do in life, and this required a lot of focus, and a lot of staying alone time. And so essentially, what ended up happening, at least for me, I got laid off my job, and for the past 2 weeks, I've been just studying for the ASVAB and stuff, and just trying to see what the hell I want to do with my life and whatever. So I was like, I need money, so I have to look for something that would make me money, right? And then once I figure out how to make money out, then I can figure out exactly what I want to do with my life or whatever, right? And so I started looking into the trades to see what it was that I would want to get on, right? To see what would make good money. And so I ended up applying at the IBU at the Union in San Antonio for an electrical apprenticeship, and I think I want to head in that direction. And one reason why I even thought about this is because it's free. I don't have to go to trade school. I can just learn directly from a union and then get an apprenticeship that way and not spend any money on school, right? Because school is super expensive, right? Which is one reason why I would want to go to the military, because the military, they can pay for your schooling, right? And so, as I sat down in the library, I pretty much opened up ChatGPT and I asked it a few questions about, where I could take this electrical thing. And at first, it took me in the direction of, okay, becoming an apprentice for electricity. And then it took me into getting a job at the military that potentially could lead me into the electricity field and whatever. But then I kind of changed my mind again, and I was like, well, I want to work with electricity, right? But out in the future, I want to be able to work with something called fusion, right? Which I believe fusion is the future for energy and power grids and all that, right? And so I was looking at ChatGPT, and it kind of told me a little bit about when it'll be released to the public, so that it'll become super efficient and we'll be able to use it to get the maximum amount of output from the fusion. And not only that, but to be able to install systems that could actually transfer fusion energy and convert it into electricity. And so I was looking into all that, right? And that sounded super interesting to me, and I wanted to get into the field of being able to be the guy who takes fusion and converts it into electricity. So I asked a few more questions. It's just a matter of being curious about this, being very curious, right? If you really want to try to figure out what the hell you want to do in life, you have to be curious. You have to ask all of the boring questions, because if you don't ask the boring questions and you're not curious about it, then you might not be able to find out what it is you want to do with your life. All right. And so this is what I did with me, or how I found out about it. So I started asking all these questions, right? But to me, these boring questions, right, are what most people would think are boring questions, right? I found out, I thought it was very interesting, right? Because this could lead to a better career path. So anyways, back to the story. I started learning a little bit about fusion, electricity, power grids, all that stuff, right? I already have in mind that I do want to become an electrician, right? But then I started asking ChatGPT, what would be the best route for me, right? For someone who would love to go to the military to be able to study and whatever, right? What would be the best route to take all of this and get a job based on, fusion and electricity, right? And so it told me that I would have to become either an electrical engineer or a nuclear engineer, right? And so I was like, well, what if I became both, and I became like a hybrid, where I could work in nuclear systems, but at the same time I could also work in electricity systems, right? And I could be the engineer of both, right? And I could potentially get a PhD or something from either one of these, right? And ChatGPT told me that, hey, you can do that. you can literally, ChatGPT told me I can get a bachelor's on electricity, like electrical engineering. Then I can get my master's in electrical engineering, right? And since these two like these two fields, like nuclear field and nuclear engineering field and electrical engineer, are like almost the same, or they're all like interconnected. Essentially, what it told me was that if I did go the electrical route and I got my bachelor's, then I can get my master's. And if I get my master's on electrical engineering, then I can, after that, I can literally skip over to getting my master's in nuclear engineering. And I was like, that's pretty damn interesting, because that would mean that I would save a lot of money on getting a bachelor's for my nuclear engineering degree. And I can essentially get both masters, which means that I can be a hybrid. Whenever these systems show up, I can work on both of them, actually. And I asked ChatGPT if I could get like a PhD or whatever, or if getting a PhD would potentially give you more money or whatever, right? And they told me that not really, because PhD is just more of a research thing where like you're pretty much just researching. It doesn't necessarily make you more money. It's just a matter of if you like it, if you love your job so much that you would want to kind of progress and experiment and create new things, do research, that type of stuff. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty interesting path to take. If I were to have a degree in electrical engineering, and if I were to have a degree in nuclear engineering, then in the future I could potentially work with fusion, and I could create systems, and I can work with fusion, and at the same time I could create systems that transfer that energy into electricity. And I could probably be making the world a better place. And I was like, yeah. But my main goal obviously is to make a lot of money, right? So that is the primary goal, and then everything else, right? And then I start giving a shit about the world and people and whatever, right? So like I kind of told myself, if I'm gonna be selfish and do this for money, then I might as well also do a little bit of good too, so that I don't become completely useless, So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go that route. I think that it'd be a very interesting way to do it, right? I also thought about pretty much being at the military and retiring off of the military after 20 years. But at the same time, getting all of my masters and all my certificates and everything during my military time. So yeah, I figured all this out using ChatGPT. All thanks to ChatGPT. So if you're looking at this video, ChatGPT, thank you. You're amazing. I would have never figured that shit out. But yeah, if I were you, if you've never used ChatGPT before and you don't know how it works or any of that, it can make your life so much fucking easier. So much fucking easier. Like you don't have to, the days of, oh yeah, you have to figure it out. Like just figure it out. Those days are gone, right? Because now we have AI that can help us. Literally, like it can help humanity. So that we don't have to figure shit out. Like we don't have to go out there and try to figure it out. ChatGPT can just get that information for you. All you have to do is be curious. You have to be curious enough to be able to talk to the AI so that I can give you this information, right? And that's wonderful. That's great, right? Because now we don't have any of these assholes telling us, yeah, just go figure it out, It's just like to me, that method of teaching is very annoying. I think that method of teaching is very ineffective. I also believe that people that say that either know what they're doing, but don't have the patience to be able to teach it, or maybe they can't teach it because they don't know how to teach, or maybe they don't know it themselves, right? And they're pretending like they know it, And that's why I hate that method of teaching, right? Because I think it's very ineffective. My whole life, I've during my whole high school and middle school and elementary school, right? I had teachers telling me the same shit, right? And unfortunately, the school system failed me. So I had to reprogram. I had to reprogram my mind, right, to be able to go back to studying and teach things to myself, right, using AI, right? Because teachers, at least from my experience, right, during my whole school career, right, I think teachers are very useless. And I really do apologize to all the teachers that are very good, but at least for me, in my experience, I never had a good teacher. I only had one good teacher my whole life, and that was in sixth grade. She was my math teacher in 6th grade, and she was the best teacher I've ever had. After that, all my teachers were terrible. I don't know if it was because I went to a ghetto school or whatever, right? But every teacher failed me. No one wanted to teach me, or the people that did try to get me to pass and whatever, they weren't good teachers. Or maybe I just wasn't a good student. I don't know, you know. But or maybe I just didn't want to be there because it was just retarded, right? So yeah, that's how I figure. Like, this is how I figured out how I wanted to, like, what I wanted to do with my life, right? And this is a way that you could also figure out what you want to do with your life, right? And it's just a matter of being curious. If you're not curious, you will never succeed at anything in life. So curiosity is what takes you from point A to point B, right? If you don't have that, if you don't have that taxi to take you from point A to point B, right, which is called curiosity, then you can't figure out what your options are. And that's super important, right? And you can't be lazy about it too, right? Because curiosity requires some type of effort too. To be able to figure out what you want to do with your life, that takes a lot of focus and it takes a lot of effort. And you have to increase your attention span too. You can't have less than 9 seconds of attention span, right? You need to have at least 15 minutes of attention span would be like perfect, right, for you. But the more attention span you have, the more probability is that you'll succeed at things in life, right? You'll be able to like progress, right, with a little bit of ambition too, right? Because without ambition, it's like you can be the smartest guy in the world, but without ambition, you can't do anything. It's just like you're bound to fail, pretty much. But anyways, I don't want to make this video too longer than this is. This video was supposed to be made for people that don't know what career they want to go into or whatever, right? This is one way I found out how I figured out how I kind of figured out what I wanted to do with my life. You know? So hopefully this helps a lot. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button. Comment down if you have anything to say to me or you want me to expand on this video or whatever. Yeah, it's whatever, I guess. I don't know what I want you to comment, but if you have any questions or anything like that, if you feel free to go ahead and comment down the description, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm at the library and I'm gonna go back to studying for the SBAB pretty much. So thank you for watching. Like I said, like the video, subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.